Hello everyone. This is the fourth part of the story, Percy Jackson, the God of Magic. Chapter 16. After Zoe handed me my gift, Annabeth came up to me and with a stern look said, "What's the plan?" Didn't she understand? The plan was to get the book and leave, get the book and come back, I answered. That's not a plan, it's a wish list at best, exasperated Annabeth with a firm look. If the AirPods Lord Hermes provided don't work, you'll be teleporting us to our death, she added. And she was right, if these things didn't work as he said they would, everyone here would die. Oh, damn. I didn't think of that, Lee muttered. Well, any ideas then? I asked Annabeth, who nodded. Can you teleport us near the island but far from their reach? Annabeth inquired. I nodded. I can. Lord Hermes gave me enough information to do so. Can you teleport us and a small boat there? Annabeth asked. I think I can, but we would be a few miles away from the location. Teleporting a small boat would take a lot of my energy, I answered. Good, then here is the plan, Annabeth smiled. You will teleport us, and a boat as close as you can to the island, then one of us will try to approach the sirens. This person will be tied with a rope in case something goes wrong. This was we test if the AirPods work, without killing ourselves. Fair enough, her plan was less impulsive and reckless than mine, so why not? Alright, let's find a small boat, I nodded. After legally getting a boat, by stealing it from a boat and nacho selling store, I started the incantation for the spell, focusing on the place I wanted to go, with Lee, Annabeth, and me, being on top of the boat. Triplet sui sulk ot 8s nearest Nelsie. Let's go, Lee cheered. With a flash of light, the boat fell into the sea with a resounding splash of water, letting us know that we were no longer in New York's Central Park, but out in the open sea. Okay. I will need at least 2 hours before I can teleport us back, I said, noticing that I felt much weaker than I had anticipated. The spell had left me dry on mana, very dry. Where is the island? Annabeth asked. North from here, 2 miles away. I answered. Then let's move this baby there, Lee said, turning the boat in that direction. Our trip from there was quite uneventful. It took us less than 5 minutes to arrive at our desired destination, and now it was time to select who among us would go and test the AirPods. I will go, I smiled. I am the one with the quest and I feel it's only fair for me to risk my life first. Besides, I want to see how much Disney got right. Imma kill me some Ariels tonight, I finished with a laugh. Don't do anything reckless. If the AirPods work, wait for us, don't engage, Annabeth sounding worried, and just now I had noticed that with my magic drained I could not feel her emotions. I guess my empathic sense is tied to my mana. Don't worry Annabeth, no overglorified sushi roll will defeat me, I chuckled, but she had a point. Anything can happen in the heat of battle, but in the awful, I do die. Please put Under the Sea as my funeral song, to match my stupid death. I don't know if I should feel proud he is so brave or concerned, Lee said to Annabeth, putting the rope around my waist. Both? Annabeth snorted. Both are good, Lee nodded, tying the rope tightly around me. Ready, he said, giving the rope a final tug to prove the rope was ready. All right, here I come, I chuckled, diving into the sea. I might not be a son of Poseidon, but I have my skills here on the water. Swimming was one of the few things I was able to do in my past life, and here I was reaping what I had sowed. I continued swimming for a minute or so, and as I approached the island something happened. All of a sudden a dreamy, almost heavenly sound invaded my senses, with whispers of the lyrics sounding somewhat familiar and yet foreign. I tried to fight it, but the song was strong. And now I lamented I didn't have enough mana to cast a no-sound spell on me as the sirens dragged me to the island controlling my mind. Adam, we were waiting for you. Images of my birth into this new world appeared in my head, son of divine creatures, images of my mother, and someone else in the shadows appeared, power never seen before lies within you, but your fatal flaw drags you. Your recklessness will be the end of you. Today, I struggled for control, but the feeling was overwhelming, but I could feel some voices calling for me. Stop! You are gonna drown! Annabeth and Lee shouted, and I snapped out of the trance. The fuck, these shitty AirPods don't work, I muttered, seeing the siren a few meters away from me. And they were not like Ariel at all. The sirens were not half fish, like I kinda expected. Instead they were human-sized vultures, with female human faces, dirty black plumage, gray talons, and wrinkled pink necks. Ew. Eat this, Lee shouted, shooting at them with his bow. Drag him back, Annabeth. Wait, they were still singing, but I was still out of their control, so perhaps these AirPods did work, but only worked after you managed to get some sort of hold over yourself. Don't. I shouted back, as I whispered, Edam ruo sray. As soon as I said that, I felt all sound disappear and an immeasurable amount of pain spread through my body, making me cough blood onto the sea. This feeling made me feel as sick as I once was, and I could feel my body shiver as it invaded my body. I knew beforehand casting a spell without fuel had consequences, that this was not something healthy to do, but I had to try all the cards in my hand before admitting defeat, and even then I would cheat or something. So with that in mind, I had high hopes the spell might just work. If the order of events was anything to go by with these sirens, it means they needed you to hear them, but this was at best a guess. But considering I heard something for a bit before entering in their melodic control, I was sure it meant that with these AirPods blocked part of their magic, or at least made it so it was easier to break free of their grasp. Annabeth immediately noticed that she couldn't hear anything, and with a smile, she turned the boat towards me, at full speed with her spear ready. If this didn't work, I would just have to bitch slap them both out of the trance, and if it did work, well, we had to kill the sirens in under 5 minutes. I don't think the spell I cast will last long. Chapter 17. As Annabeth approached, I could feel the sirens turning their attention to me, and with a shriek that could break glass, one of them dived at me, pulling me deep into the sea. At first, I was scared, very scared, but I would be damn if I go without a fight. Pulling my sword, I swung at the siren's claw, but this creature not only was apparently aquatic, even though their bodies hinted otherwise, because it kicked my sword with his free paw deep into the sea. With a smile devoid of emotion, the monster kicked me deep into the sea, tossing me aside like an old doll, and started to swim back to the surface to face my team. And as I descended into the depths of Poseidon's realm, I realized what the monster had done, what the monster had in mind. The siren wanted to drown me first. She knew I couldn't breathe underwater, and with that intention, she held me underwater until oxygen was about to run off, and then just to be sure she kicked deeper into the sea, as a cruel touch to make sure that I died trying to swim to the surface, which I would fail, and without me the death spell I had cast would go off immediately, meaning the time I bought my team would become useless, resulting in 3 deaths, 3 horrific deaths. I didn't want to die, I wasn't ready to die. I can't die. Panic spread as I raged about my stupidity. Why had I rushed without mana? I was for now highly dependent on it. Panic and rage coursed through my body as I pushed my body to the very limit in a desperate attempt to escape this fate. I could feel my heart beating faster by the second, to the point my chest started hurting badly. I could feel the need in my body to open my mouth and breath, even though I was under the ocean, and that would only make things worse for me. And while I desperately tried to save myself, a part of me whispered I was not going to make it to the surface, that no matter how hard I tried my body would give up before I managed to reach the surface, and I would drown. But the kindle of hope inside me had yet to die. And as my body began to slow down, almost getting to the point of a respiratory arrest, a hand reached out to me, and with desperation, I stretched out my hand and grabbed it. "Ah!" I shouted as I got to the surface, with my body immediately claiming the oxygen around. It took a few seconds for my body to realize I was okay, and a few more of me coughing like a smoker with terminal cancer. A little help! Annabeth shouted, swinging her spear at the sirens. A quick look around showed me I wasn't in the sea. Something I had failed to notice till now. I was standing at the island, and not only that, but the spell had worn off. I could hear her, meaning she could hear me, a fact the sirens seemed to be oblivious about. The raw fear the siren had forced into me, the primal fear she had awoken while she tried to drown me, that sensation of helplessness I had felt under the sea as I struggled to survive, all of that, turned in the blink of an eye into an unyielding rage. I wanted to kill the sirens, I wanted to see their body turn into dust, and with a scream of pain, agony, and anger, I held my bow high aiming at them, and without hesitation, I shot an arrow at the one that had tried to drown me. The clueless siren did not see it coming. For her I was about to die a few seconds ago, and therefore I was discarded out of her mind. And so in her carelessness of not making sure that I was actually dead, I was now dictating the terms of our battle, which brought me a sense of satisfaction when the arrow I had shot hit her in the chest, making her scream in agony and confusion. As she turned around to see me, "I hope you rot in Tartarus," I screamed, shooting arrow after arrow at her. The first two she managed to dodge as she tried to reach me, but before the next 5 shots took her down to the ground a few meters away from me, where I continued to shoot until there was nothing more than dust where she once laid. Her siren sisters turned around seeing her sister gone, and in response, the 2 remaining sirens screamed in agony and flew at me promising a world of pain. I scoffed and aimed at them, but before I could shoot, Annabeth and Lee took this opportunity to kill them off while their guard was down, with Annabeth impaling one of the sirens, and Lee killing the other with 2 arrows to the head. When I realized that the sirens were no longer present, that the threat had been eliminated, I fell to the ground of the island with my hands trembling, thinking that I had almost died. How careless was I? 1 second more underwater, and I would have ended up inside those monsters as a meal. Not only I had risked my life in a stupid manner, but I had dragged 2 more lives to the mix, and then it hit me. The sirens had revealed to me my fatal flaw. I was reckless, and today it almost cost my life. "Dude, you okay?" Lee said, running to me. "I think I am," I answered, with a raspy breath. "I apologize," Annabeth muttered, sounding angry with herself. "I should have thought of a better strategy. This was my fault. What was I thinking, fighting them on the water, while they hold dominion over the skies and the sea? I almost killed us all. It's okay. I was the moron that thought teleporting here, losing all my magic for a prolonged period of time, was an okay idea. I should have gone the long fucking way. It's not like this shit has a time limit anyway," I sighed, as I got my metaphorical shit together. "And I was awesome," Lee chuckled, getting a look from Annabeth and me. "What? I did nothing wrong, not my fault. I can't seem to miss." "So now what? The book?" Annabeth asked. "Yes, and then we go back home," I nodded. We now had to explore the island, find the tome, and get the heck out of this place. Chapter 18. It was deep in the night, with the moon over halfway down in the western sky, and I was feeling rather troubled. At first, I blamed my bad mood too. Well, I don't know, almost dying, but now, after feeling my mana not recovering at all, something felt odd. Something in this island was putting my instincts on a high trip, and my mana on a low basis. I wasn't sure exactly what was going to happen, or when, but I knew something was going to happen, and even though I had no idea what that entailed, I had a strong feeling that it was going to be something straight out of a horror movie. Considering the deeper we got into the island, the more terrifying the place got, with a fucking haze that covered around 8% of the area. We continued our walk, and I could see Annabeth and Lee were also alert, showing not only I was feeling an ominous feeling coming from this wretched place, but eventually we found the one place I had seen the book thanks to Hermes, the one place on the island that had life? Or rather looked like it had something reminiscent of life, With a sigh, I moved forward and my suspicion was confirmed. I could see where the book or tome was the one we or I was supposed to recover for the gods, and immediately noticed something was wrong. Everything was quiet, too quiet. I bet Lee's dessert privilege that the moment we get into that cave, or close it, a monster will appear, I said, feeling an ominous feeling coming from the area. This island was something else, even though I had been walking for hours. I still felt weak, my mana was still depleted, and I felt like death was lurking in the shadows. With a sigh, I observed the cave behind the time, a cave that seemed to call at us. That sounds like a stupid bet, Annabeth sighed. Why would I bet if my chance of losing is 100%? Alright, hand me your sword, Lee. I sighed, realizing it was nothing much I could do besides tackling the problem. Alright. Annabeth and I will go in, you guard our back. No energy for magic? Annabeth asked, and I shook my head. Fucking place. As I walked with Annabeth, I started to wonder if I would get to kill another siren today. This was, after all, the Siren's Island, maybe a super siren. But before I could continue to ponder over such morose thoughts, a chilling sensation stopped me. Something that made both Annabeth and me stop cold, a sound, something that sounded like a hiss, followed by an earth-shaking tremor and ear-piercing shriek filled our ears, with pain and fear. In front of me, something started to manifest, as a fair bit of faint blue smoke formed a body. At first, it looked like a beautiful woman. But as it materialized a bit more and more, her shape started to change, to morph, with little details that made her terrifying, like her bony face, which was wider than it legally should be, locked in a permanent expression of delirious joy. Lidless eyes wide open and bulging as if eyes were about to pop out of her head like candy, her wide mouth gaping, showing jagged teeth dripping of blood, no dripping of poison, and her body, that at one point of its manifestation was a beautiful woman, was now an amalgamation of something that vaguely resembled a human and a scorpion mashed together. Her hands were big enough to hold 5 basketballs without dropping them. While her arms were simply so skinny there was no way she could hold those hands, were suffering fractures. Alas, biology didn't apply to this. Immediately in shock, I took a step back in horror. Hungry! She screeched, as she turned slowly to both Annabeth and me, and I couldn't help but wonder what in the name of Tartarus was that. Not that I could use my head right now, I had trouble suppressing the chills that ran down my spine. Wise girl, the fuck is that? Lee shouted with worry. I don't know, Annabeth muttered, taking a few steps back. The amalgamation cackled, looking at us. Where are you, food? The monster questioned with a delighted expression, and fast as lightning, her abnormally elongated hand shot forward and something flew at me, missing me by half an inch. Taking a deep breath, I turned around to see the projectile lodge diagonally on the ground. The woman apparently had the skill to shot bones. Delightful, the Percy Jackson version of Kimimaro. Taking into consideration how fast that thing was, there is no way we could possibly avoid a straight shot. That shit she just shot was faster than anything I have seen, which means a straight-on fight was not the solution. Looking at the monster, I noticed something. The monster was so strong. Why were we still alive? Not that I complain, but with that power, she could end us before we even had the chance to draw our weapons. Studying the monster a bit more closely, I noticed her eyes, while creepy and nightmare-provoking, were milky white. And if I have learned anything by reading science and manga, is that the monster was either blind or had an almost 360 vision field. But considering we were still alive, it was time to test the blind theory. So taking a deep breath, I threw a rock far. I carefully grabbed from the ground and threw it as far as I could, and as soon as the rock made some sound, the monster immediately rushed towards the sound, shooting projectiles at it. That was it, she was half scorpion, which meant she had to be kinda blind. Of course, Annabeth said in realization without actually vocalizing it, thank God she has brains, and that I can read lips. What? Lee screamed without making a sound, mostly speaking with his hands. She is blind. Annabeth shouted back, without making a sound. Food? Is playing with me? The monster cackled, good. I want to have fun with food, that way food always tastes better. I made a gesture for Annabeth and Lee to move, and I did the same. Apparently, a little step alerted the monster enough. There? The monster screamed in delight, throwing another projectile, this time at Lee. This time the projectile did hit, but no as intended, for it merely scratched Lee, who said nothing. Then I drew my bow and shot at her, but much to my dismay the arrow broke upon contact, showing her skin was tough enough to withstand our weapons, or at least my arrows. This battle was going to be impossible to win if I didn't use magic, so I decided to embrace my fatal flaw and do something reckless. Selb ruo swura dna tebene rapes tie. At this, one of her projectiles pierced my leg, but I didn't stop my incantation. Seeing this, both Lee and Annabeth started running and shouting to buy me time. 8 Nikreep Rewap Fo 8 Sneva. As soon as I finished the incantation, pain like I have never experienced before brought me to my knees, with my eyes, mouth and ears bleeding. This was worse than anything I had felt in my past, 1,000,000 times worse. A cruel reminder of what happens when casting spells without energy, but it's not like I had much of a choice. It was either that or letting the monstrosity eat us, and if I died doing this it wouldn't be so bad. I would die on my terms. Hungry. Eat now. The monster roared, throwing her assault of bones in every direction, but what the monster didn't know was that Lee and Annabeth were running through the big rocks using them as cover. Quite clever. In pain, with my vision being at this point nothing but shadows, and the sounds around me being nothing more than muffled tones, I stood up, nothing but my will supporting me, and took my bow and an arrow from my quiver. Artemis, Apollo, I pray for you two to guide my arrow so that it strikes my target. Bless this shot, I muttered as I shot at the biggest shadow, hoping it was the monster, hoping that my sibling would guide my shot, considering it was my last for now, and it seems they did. Or at least I had luck shooting at it if the muffled sound of the monster screaming in pain was anything to go by. My reckless move had worked. Not so much of a flaw now. Our weapons could now pierce her skin. Annabeth. Lee. I shouted, falling to the ground once again. Attack her. Our weapons work now. And as I felt my body going numb, I couldn't help but chuckle. This had been what I saw in the vision of the oracle. Total darkness. So this is it. How underwhelming. Chapter 19. As the darkness began to slowly but surely embrace me, I could hear Annabeth and Lee fighting for their lives. As I wondered, was this it? My destiny was to die a fool. I don't accept it. Fuck the oracle, fuck fate. I don't want to die. I'm not ready to die this time. This time I wanted to live. I'm not going to let a mummy tell me where I'm going to die, I said forcibly as I pushed my eyes open with pure sheer willpower, my body begging to just stop struggling, but no. Fuck my body too. I wanted to live, and that was final. I'm not going to let a second-hand mummy tell me what my destiny should be. With my legs shaking in pain and my vision all blurry, I stood from the ground despite all the odds against me, getting a pleasant surprise when I did so, because out of nowhere, I felt how my body started to heal on its own. It was a foreign feeling, yet familiar feeling, very unexpected, but I wasn't going to complain. Though this would do no difference in this battle, for this self-healing wasn't healing much at all, for now, it was just healing my magically crippling mana fatigue, which was the main reason I was on seconds before on the ground, so this was very welcomed, but at the rate I was recovering, it would take too long for me before I managed to recover my casting abilities. So with a sigh, I grabbed my bow from the ground and got ready to fight, but this time I needed to think this through. For one, I knew that with the current state of my eyes, I would never be able to aim at the monster properly again. Right now at long range I was a liability. I had to make the monster come to me, but before doing that, I had to make sure I would kill him. As I tried to think of how to kill the monster, I felt a very familiar sound floating around me. I instinctively stretched out my hand without knowing why. The The sound was like the fluttering of wings of a raven, but at the same time it sounded like a book whose pages were being aggressively flipped. It was a mix of tone if I had to pick something. As I touched whatever was hovering around me, I felt my body sucking on something, like a source of energy that immediately took the fatigue away. The second thing that happened was that I regained my sight. In shock, I brought my gaze immediately to what I was touching, seeing it was a book. My book of spells. What was it doing here? I didn't know, and how was my mana regenerating just by touching it? I didn't know either, but those were questions for later. This was a welcomed surprise, but I knew it wouldn't last long. I could somehow tell the book barely had enough to get me back up to 20% charge mana-wise at much if I was lucky. As far as I could feel through my hand, that was. But regardless of that, I had to act fast, or Annabeth and Lee would die. Before I could start my incantation, I felt something coming from the book, a change of energy to say something. Taking the book to see what was happening, I noticed it was changing, and before I could come with any conclusion, the book opened in front of me, and started to erase all the content inside of it, leaving a new title, with a piece of new information inside. Chapter 2 of the Book of Magic, Demonic Arts and Incantations. While my mind was in shock, the book began to turn the pages, and with a somewhat violent glow stopped on one page, which had only one spell. I call the darkness unto me from deepest depths of earth, and see from ancient evils unawoken break the one that can't be broken. To blackest night I pledge my soul, I crush my heart to burning coal, to summon forth a deathly power, to see my hatred foe devoured. A spell of great power, but of great cost. This spell does not use mana, nor any earthly energy. The cost for using this spell is the risk of being corrupted by the dark energy of the spell. That spell, I had seen it before, in my world, on television, in a cartoon show while I was at one of the many clinics I used to frequent, which could only mean that this book somehow had knowledge of various universes on a magical level. First there was the magic Zatanna wielded. I let that slide, thinking perhaps this world had the same type of magic as some type of cosmic connection, but now this. There was no longer any doubt in my mind that Leto had not given me the book, nor any god of the Olympus pantheon for that matter. This book was too powerful for that to be the case. No god here would give anyone such a weapon. Well, I guess the book wants me to kill the monster with this specific spell. Sighing, I decided to give it a shot. Feeling somewhat brave, I call the darkness unto me from deepest depths of earth, and see from ancient evils unawoken break the one that can't be broken. To blackest night I pledge my soul, I crush my heart to burning coal, to summon forth a deathly power, to see my hatred foe devoured. Word by word I felt something frightening forming within me, with my hands burning in a dark cloak of darkness. But it all ended when the incantation was over. All the energy I had called upon had turned into a dark sphere floating slowly but surely in front of me, and without giving any warning it started to shape itself little by little until a raven had taken shape from the foreign energy. The dark animal stared at me for a second, showing no emotion, but an overpowering scent of death. And even though it was a construct I had created with my own hands, it was genuinely frightening. It was like staring at death itself, and I knew that one touch from that thing and no amount of will would put me back together. Giving one chillingly terrifying caw, the raven flew from its original position to the monster, who immediately reacted to the sound the construct made and tried to attack it, which was the worst and last mistake the monster made. For as soon as that happened and the monster made contact with the energy, it turned into dust. After that the monster died. I ran to my companions who were on the floor gasping for air. They were safe and that was all it mattered. But before I was able to approach them any further, I felt a new pain invade my head. It felt like my right eye was burning, as if someone had ripped my eye out with a molten hot knife. "You're okay," Lee muttered happily, but his expression morphed into worry as soon as he saw my face. "Your eye? What of it?" I asked as the pain stopped. "You need a mirror, I can't describe it," Lee muttered. "What can't you?" "Oh, in the name of my mother," Annabeth muttered, staring at me. I almost died, twice. I got new spells, and new consequences for using them, and I was probably blind in my right eye now. Great day, love it. Yes, I was being sarcastic, I deserve to be right now. Chapter 20. With the quest completed, there was nothing left for us but to return to the camp. We had all suffered in this mission. Annabeth had a couple of broken ribs, and Lee, well, he had some internal bleeding. As for me, well, I had lost and gained the most, considerably more than they had. For losses, my right eye was gone. Well, not gone, but I was blind now, and I could only hope Apollo was able to heal it, otherwise, I would have to learn to live without depth perception. But on the bright side, without the weird monster we had killed, I was now recovering my mana quite fast. How long till you can teleport us? Annabeth asked with a weak smile. Not much, I answered, with a smile. I don't feel so good, Lee chuckled, coughing blood every 2 words. I think I need to take a nap. Wake me when it is time to go. Don't die on me, is my first time babysitting one of my nephews, I chuckled. Well, you are the worst uncle ever, Lee laughed. After resting for an hour, I teleported us to the camp, where we received medical attention. In my case, as soon as Chiron saw me, he got angry, knowing right away that I had used dark magic, saying it was the reason I was blind on an eye now, a curse that took my sight from one eye away. And by how he described the nature of the curse, it was one that only Hecate or Apollo could remove. So I did the only thing I could, and prayed for Apollo to come. I did not want to be blind, so I prayed, and at first, I got no response, and was about to give up on that healing path, until a note appeared in front of me. Dear little bro, congrats on the quest. Now, about your curse, don't worry and worry, meet the worry meter in the middle. I will remove the curse later today when I get the time to go to the camp without Dad knowing. But heed my warning if you fall under that curse again. I won't remove it again, not because I want to teach you a valuable lesson, but because I won't be able to do so. This curse is like nothing I have ever seen. It consumes your soul, is the cancer of magic, to put in human terms. You are basically very lucky to have the curse at a manageable point, which is why I can remove it, but is nearing a state I won't be able to do anything about it. Hecate might know more about this, but I want to keep her out of this matter altogether, she would tell Dad right away, and, well, I don't want to think about it. I'll be in your cabin in about 3 hours. Please don't use more magic until then. The curse is of the mana corrupting kind, and will spread more and more the more magic you use. Just sit and wait for me. A curse he as a god could not remove twice? I am definitely not using that spell ever again. All right, time to do nothing, I sighed, as I entered my cabin, wondering what else did my magic book had to offer. What a day, and everything to recover a fucking tone Colgate I mean. Hecate threw into the sea. I don't even know the woman and I hate her. Apollo point of view. Mom was going to kill me. Adam had not only gotten badly hurt but was close to dying more than once, and to top that cherry my little bro had gotten a curse that really put his parentage into question. I mean, what in the name of Tartarus was that curse, actually? Now that I think about it, it felt like something straight from out of Tartarus. After all, the nature of this magical illness was dark, very dark, and I have seen dark, not like this, never like this. In fact, the best term I could come with to describe such anomaly was to compare to magical cancer or magical HIV. The curse was passive and aggressive, sticking to his core at a molecular level, but not spreading beyond the point it had already taken over. No, this curse didn't spread on a normal basis. This one spread on a more intricate level, waiting for my brother to use magic to spread through his system further and further to the point of no return. Did he really get that by a spell he cast? Artemis asked, shocked a demigod could curse himself on a level only a god could. Yes, apparently the spell was as dark as they come, I nodded, wondering if Mother had sired a son of Tartarus. Do you think he's a child of Tartarus? I don't think so, otherwise, he would be God, or at least immortal, and he's not, Artemis replied, but it was clear she was also questioning who sired him. He had powers he shouldn't have, and access to dark arts that not even the gods had access to. Mom controls everything related to childbirth, including if the baby is immortal or not. Perhaps she did that? I sighed, it's just I can't understand, his magic is way beyond what the children of Hecate can do, and now he has curses that could only come from those of the realm of Tartarus or Erebos. His dad can't be human. At least of that much I am certain. We should ask Mom, if he has any relationship with the primordials, even a distant father will kill him. We must ask Mom who his father is, Artemis said with resolution. If push comes to shove, I'll just turn him into a woman. Father will never find him. Let's not go that far, I snorted, imagining Adam as a huntress. I am sure we can keep Dad occupied, especially with the new son of Poseidon coming into play soon. Oh. Yeah. That kid, Artemis sighed. Very well, but regardless of that, we must find who his father is before father starts making assumptions. If we are lucky his dad will be a minor god, like Thanatos. Let's hope is that. I nodded. Anything above that in the power ladder, and nothing would stop Dad from smiting Adam. This marks the end of part 4 of the story Percy Jackson, the God of Magic. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.